Geek Therapy Radio.
Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. Of course, the Geek Therapy Radio podcast actually is what you're listening to. And I'm going to try something, do things a little bit different today. And let's see if I can remember to do this in each subsequent show and podcast. I want to switch things around a little bit, the order of things. Mainly, it's just my little sign-off that I do at the end, my little encouraging sign-off. I want to see if I can remember, try to make it a habit to do that, to say those words at the beginning of each show and at the beginning of each podcast, because it kind of dawned on me that, you know what, sometimes, just sometimes, people might not listen to the entirety of the podcast or the entirety of the show all the way through. Who knows what happens? Either you're not into whatever I'm talking about that day, or life gets in the way. It winds up not being a subject you're not very much a geek about. Who knows? Whatever happens, that's fine. Why you might not listen to the end of a podcast or get that far through it. Things happen. Mostly with me, I'll start listening to a podcast and I'll get home, I'll stop listening to it, usually listening to it in the car or whatever, and then I'll just forget about it, and then I'll come back to it, a few days later or whatever. So things happen. So I want to start off each podcast now, if I can remember, with my words of encouragement. We're all geeks about something, so embrace your inner geek. It's cool to be a geek now in 2019, going into 2020. Geek is no longer a negative word. It means you're passionate about something. It means you're really into something. And in a world that can get you down very many times, I find it very therapeutic, hence Geek Therapy Radio, to lean into your geek thing or discover new geek things or rekindle your old geek thing, either from your childhood, from your teenage years, from before college, during college, whatever it is. We're all geeks about something. So whether that's airplanes or cars or audio, recording, music, art, could be bodybuilding, like I always say, could be working with metal, woodworking, whatever your geek thing is, we're all geeks about something. So embrace your inner geek, because I think that's very good therapy in a world that can be kind of dark sometimes. The other thing is that I want you to know that you are worthy of love. You're worthy of giving love. That means showing love to others. And you're worthy of receiving love. So when somebody tells you that they love you, you can believe it. They do love you. Now, there are some toxic people. Obviously, if they're saying it in some sarcastic way, you disregard that person. Disregard haters, so to speak. But at the very base level, you need to know that you are loved and you are worthy of love. Even if you haven't heard somebody tell you that they love you recently, you are worthy of love, and you're also worthy of your own self-respect. So be good to yourselves and others, and I think the world will be a better place for it. I think that joy, I think that happiness, I think that self-confidence also, it ripples out. If you throw a rock in the pond and it's just a little pebble, whatever, but the ripples will make it to the shore. At the very least, those ripples radiate outward. So if you love yourself, that will radiate outward to others. If you show love to others, then they will radiate the same love out to others and others and others. And at the very least, we've tried to make the world a better place. And to some measurable degree, we do make the world a better place. But I think it all starts from the inside, from your own self-respect and the realization that you are worthy of love. Worthy of love. You're worthy of being loved. You're alive and you're breathing. That means you are worthy of being loved and worthy of your own self-respect. Okay, so every intro won't be that long, but I just want to get into that habit of giving those encouraging words at the beginning so that you always hear them. Even if you stop the podcast a few minutes through, you always hear the words of encouragement first. Okay, so today, on to the geeky stuff. I just wanted to do something kind of fun today. For the past few months, I have been, just like a lot of other computer geeks, we build PCs in our mind. We're always looking for parts. We're always looking for deals on parts. We're always keeping abreast of the latest CPUs and GPUs and faster RAM and new motherboards and new chipsets and new whatever, the latest and greatest, because we want to build, at least in our minds, our new PC. This is going to sound weird to my wife, who I know is listening. This is going to sound very weird, but I am actually quite behind as far as a modern computer is concerned. My latest build, the state of the art that I own, is at latest 2015. As far as my desktop PC is concerned, the graphics card I have in there is the GTX 980. It's still a great graphics card, don't get me wrong. The processor in there is Intel Core i7 4790K. That's from an 1150 motherboard. That's the socket 1150. 4 cores, 8 threads, and I've got 32 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM. It is state-of-the-art 2015. So we are about 5 years going into 2020, and I haven't built any more modern PCs since then. My laptop is slightly more modern than that. It's state-of-the-art 2016, I believe. It actually uses DDR4 RAM. I've got 64 gigs on my laptop, and the graphics card is a GTX 1060. Still not state-of-the-art. But focusing on my desktop and my workstation, what I do these podcasts on, at least some of the time, what I do video editing on. I do a lot of work on my desktop home PC. Of course, gaming as well, but it's mostly just work. As much as I would like to just sit up there and play video games, if the computer's on, it's editing videos or it's editing these podcasts. So that's what I'm rocking. 2015, 4 cores, 8 threads, DDR3 memory, GTX 980. I haven't upgraded in a while. So yes, I have been holding out, and I think I'm in a good spot. And if you have been holding out like me, bar none, you are in a good spot to be thinking about building a new computer, because a lot has happened in the last 5 years. AMD has risen. Well, they were never in the ashes, but AMD is nipping at and even surpassed. They have well surpassed Intel as far as value is concerned, but even their processors, which are significantly cheaper than Intel processors, are now just as good and in some cases better than Intel processors. So yes, as you've heard me say on the show many times before, if you're a regular listener, my next workstation build, like my next main desktop build, everything other than the video card, I think, is going to be AMD. So obviously AMD motherboard, obviously an AMD CPU. I'll probably keep my GTX 980 because it's still a good video card. Eventually I'll upgrade the video card. But my next build is going to be an AMD build. But I'm not just going to do any AMD build. And this is the meat and potatoes of this podcast, I am holding out for the AMD Ryzen 9 3950X. That is a consumer grade for a consumer motherboard. That means it's not a workstation motherboard. It's something that is much cheaper. You can get normal consumer desktop AMD motherboards on the X570 chipset, I believe, for way less than comparable Intel motherboards. Actually, motherboards don't vary between Team Red and Team Blue too much as far as price is concerned. But the point is, you can get a 16-core processor, that 3950X, AMD 3950X, 16-core processor on relatively inexpensive consumer-grade motherboards for way less money. If you want to get 16 cores on the Intel side, you are spending an exorbitant amount of money. Not to say that the 3950X is cheap. It's $750. But going over to the Intel side, you are going to be spending hundreds of dollars more for a comparable processor from Intel. So my focus is on building an AMD computer centered around the 3950X. Last I checked, you can get them. Well, that's the point of this podcast, is it's hard to get, but it should be around $750. I do see at Micro Center, and this is not a plug for Micro Center, but you can get the 3900X, I believe it is, for $480. That's the processor right under the 3950X. So the 3900X is 12 cores, 24 threads, and it's very tempting. $480. I'm actually on Micro Center's website right now, so I can verify this for you. 3900X, 2.8 gigahertz, 12 core, and it's $480. You can't even secure it online. You can't buy it online. It's only available in store, and they have 4 left. Last I checked, it was 6 left, and that was like an hour ago. But at any rate, I'm holding out for the 3950X, the 16-core, 32-thread. It's going to be around $750. So let's see if we can find one now. That is what the point of this podcast is. I'm going to just type it into Google here and see what comes up. Now, I visited Best Buy earlier today, so let's open up a tab here in Chrome. There goes half of my RAM. Jokes. I got jokes here on Geek Therapy Radio. So it's listed for $749, sold out. Of course, I fully expected it to be sold out. So let's keep searching. Let's see if we can find one. I don't think we will. The next natural choice here is going to be Newegg for their 3950X. What? Hold up. This is bullcrap. Okay, I'm just going to tell you what I'm reading from Newegg right now. AMD Ryzen 9 3950X 16-core processor, yes. Newegg apparently has them in stock, but don't get your hopes up. I'm looking at the website right now. I'll include a link in the podcast description. They want $1,289 for it. Don't do that. Do not buy a $750 processor for $1,300. Don't do it. They are gouging you. I wonder if they're aware of that. But they have three of them new in stock for $1,290. They're charging $1,290 for a $750 processor. Don't do that. Skip. But if money is no object to you and you just, for some reason, just can't wait a little bit, there's a few on Newegg for $1,300. That's ridiculous. Absolutely bonkers. Newegg is usually, well, I don't know. I don't shop on Newegg too terribly often. I bought a few things from them in the past, but I can't speak to their track record. Let's see Micro Center. I already checked Micro Center here in Houston, but let's see what comes up in general, I guess. Sold out. Sold out in Micro Center in general, as far as I can tell, is what I'm looking at here. As at least in Houston. Let's change my store info and see change. I just want we'll do web store. I don't have time to go through every Micro Center in the country and see what their inventory is. So let's just see what's going on the web store here. It doesn't even show. I don't think they would even make it available on their web store if they did have one. So yeah, Micro Center is out, at least for the context of this podcast. Amazon. This might be interesting. Let's see if they have any 3950X. Currently unavailable. That makes sense. So just to recap so far, Newegg apparently does have them for almost twice as much. They're gouging $1,300, and at that they only have 3 of them left, because I would imagine that there are not too many dummies out there that are going to spend almost twice as much for a value processor. Most of us are just going to wait. Most of us are not made of money, so I'm not spending that kind of premium on it. Here's the thing, though. For $1,300, there are better processors out there. Okay, B&H Photo. Let's see. Back ordered. Back ordered. I have a feeling there's going to be a trend here, but it's fun nonetheless just to kind of geek out about this and kind of see if there's anything anywhere. I know I can hear a lot of you yelling through my microphone at me, yelling into my mouth that I should go check eBay. I'll check eBay. I don't imagine eBay is going to be much better than Newegg's price gouging if eBay even has any, if anyone's even listed anything on eBay. I'll also try Craigslist. I'm going to go to Craigslist right now, actually, while I'm thinking about that, because I think I might forget. Craigslist. And I'm going to look in Houston. Houston is a big city of 6 million people. I would say that if there's not a 3950X on Craigslist in Houston, it's a good bet that there will be very few for sale. Oh, it says there's 2. Let's see. Well, it's a Craigslist 2 for sale. All that means is somebody put 3950X in the description somewhere. No, there's a gaming computer, Intel Core i7, that came up. That's not AMD. That's Intel. Someone just threw in the tag 3950X, and the other one is a motherboard it's a B450. And they threw in 3950X somewhere in there. Whatever. Craigslist is just... I don't even know how to describe Craigslist. It's such a mixed bag. You have to be so careful on Craigslist. Not only for your life, but I mean nobody reads descriptions. If you post something on Craigslist, be ready to answer blatant things that are in the description. Be willing to answer the question of, well, how much is it, even though it's listed. If you list a car for $2,000 or whatever, you're going to have people saying, well, how much is it? Read the freaking thing. I almost want to ignore that kind of correspondence completely, but let's stay on track here. Let's go to eBay and see if there are any 3950Xs on eBay. Search for 3950X. Let's see what comes up. Oh, yes. Okay, one left from this seller, $1,200. Ooh, okay. This one says $760, but it's bid. It's not buy it now. You're bidding on it, and currently the bid is at $760, and there's 4 bids. The next one, buy it now, $1,088. The next one is $1,040. There's one that's being auctioned now, and there's 9 bids, and it's up to $860. Next one is $810, 2 bids. Buy it now, $1,030. Buy it now, $1,000. Bidding starting at $900. There's a bid for $810. Buy it now for $980. Hey, we're getting below $1,000 now. Another buying. Okay, so here's the takeaway from eBay. Yes, there's one listed here for $1,500. It's even more than Newegg. There's plenty on eBay. But as you can imagine, they are overpriced. The cheapest one I'm seeing, buy it now, is for $980. I'm seeing another one here for $1,000. So if you're willing to pay a $250 premium at the minimum, there are 3950Xs on eBay. I'm not gonna recommend that. If you're just money bags, you are Scrooge McDuck, and you are swimming around in money. Don't dive into coins, by the way. Cartoon physics doesn't work. If you dive into a pool of gold coins, you're gonna split your head open. You're gonna die. Don't do that. I say don't dive into a pool of coins as if anybody listening right now has a pool filled with gold coins like Scrooge McDuck. Okay, if you do, if you're listening to this on the grand scheme of things, obscure podcast, and you have a pool full of gold coins, just break me off like the shallow section. Break me off the baby pool part of it. Break me off just the last, like 2 square feet of the baby pool. Oh, that'll be fine. Me and my wife will very much appreciate the generosity. What will you get in return for being like the ultimate Patreon? I don't promote my Patreon enough. I've got my Patreon. I'm about to start adding some goodies to the Patreon. So make sure check out the Patreon. It links to it on my Geek Therapy Radio website. I don't pimp it enough. So I do have a Patreon. But yeah, if you are the ultimate Patreon donator, you just send me hundreds of pounds of gold coins. Thank you. If you do that, I will fly to your house and give you a hug. How about that? Okay, so I'm going to start wrapping up the podcast here. The takeaway is this. There are no AMD 3950Xs readily available at list price. List price is $750. Unless you have a lucky find or a jackpot somewhere, you're not going to find one for $750. Right now, as of recording in mid-December 2019, they're not available. So my advice is to hold out until they are available. There are some available on Newegg for $1,300, and there are some available on eBay for around $1,000. That's the takeaway of all this. And I learned that along with you. I did not do any of this pre-research before doing the podcast. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'll sign off here quickly with my encouragement that you heard earlier. We're all geeks about something. Embrace your inner geek. Know that you are worthy of love, both giving and receiving love. And know that you are worthy of your own self-respect. Be good to yourselves and others. Thank you for listening to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. Please share it with your friends or anybody you think would like to listen to it. That's the ultimate advertising, is just word of mouth. Say, hey, this idiot geek talks about geek stuff all the time, and he's, whatever, it's entertaining. So I'm downplaying myself a lot there. But yeah, if you would just share with your friends and family that you think would be interested in something like this, tell them about the Geek Therapy Radio podcast, and they can get it anywhere in their favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for listening to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.
Therapy Radio, Saturday night at 10 on KPRC 950. Or listen anytime on our iHeartRadio app.